Is Amira Barnes, and today we're going to be making foil sculptures. We're also going to be doing some gesture drawings as a warm-up a little later, but I would love to give you some background about who I am. I am a painter, I'm an illustrator, and I'm also an art educator. I teach painting, drawing, illustration, mostly portraiture and figure drawing. I've been in the field for as long as I can remember. I've been an artist. Wow, I honestly don't know, for majority of my life. I started painting because my grandmother, she was an artist, and I would see her work all over her walls, and I'd be like, Nana, I'm gonna be just like you. So I ended up following suit. I went to school for it. I went to Philadelphia High School for Creative and Performing Arts. And around the corner from that was Fleischer Art Memorial. So I started interning at Fleischer Art Memorial. And then eventually I worked up to becoming a lead teacher. And I've taught portraiture, figure drawing, painting and drawing, illustration. And for the most part, I've had an amazing experience there. But enough about me. Let's get started. So today we will be focusing on movement and movement, figures, and form, and the importance of movement. Before we get started, I want to know if you moved today. Of course you've moved, but were you active today? Did you take a walk? Did you go outside? Did you just jump around? Did you go ride your bike? Did you do anything of that sort? Because it's very important for us to be constantly moving around, because if we're not moving, then we can become physically and emotionally tense. I find that when I am not in the best mood, what I'll do is I'll take my chunky dog, I'll put my earphones in, and I'll walk to the park around the corner from my house, and usually the stress just melts away, because I'm no longer confined in my space. So I'm able to go out, move around, get my mind off of whatever my mind was on, and function normally, not normally, but like be able to function without any type of stress. What is your favorite form of movement? My favorite form of movement, like I said before, it was probably walking, because I enjoy the freedom that I get from just taking a walk. Usually when I was in high school, I went to high school in the city. And when you are in the city, you have to do a lot of walking. We used to walk to City Hall, to Liberty Place. I would walk to Wawa, and we would get on the bus and then walk around West Philly and just go on tons of adventures. And that's one of my fondest high school memories, was going on adventures all the time. But what is your favorite form of movement? Do you like to ride your bike? Do you like to walk around? Do you like to do jump rope? I used to jump rope sometimes. I was always turning the rope rather than jumping in, but jumping rope was really good for me. Do you like to dance? Dancing is a really good form of movement. I like to dance when I'm by myself. Whenever I'm really stressed out, I'll, throw some music on, and I'll lock my door, and I'll just dance my heart out. I usually don't dance in front of people, but I will dance my heart out when I'm by myself. So if you have a speaker, or you have a phone or something, make sure you put some music on and dance a little later. Heck, you can pause the video and you can dance now if you wanted to. But dancing is also a really good art form. If you've seen breakdancing, or if you've seen ballerinas or anything of that sort, usually dancers telling a story through their movements and telling a story through the shapes that their body creates. Specifically when you are looking at maybe a ballerina or any type of classical dancer, they are telling a very intricate story through the body movements that they make. And usually when they're dancing, it's portraying some sort of emotion as well. So usually if their dance number is about if it's like high energy and high emotion, they'll like have very frantic movements. Or if it's a very calm and loving and soothing dance, they'll move very slowly and melodically. So it's amazing the stories the body can tell just through dance and through those type of movements. One artist that we're going to be looking at in particular, his name is Ernie Barnes. Nope, we're not related. We're not related, unfortunately, because he's one of my favorite artists. But he has a painting called The Sugar Shack. And it is a depiction of a bunch of people in a jazz club just getting down. They're boogieing, man. They're dancing around. And the one thing I love about his paintings is the shapes that he creates through the bodies. Like, a lot of the bodies are really elongated, and he has really good attention to detail when it comes to negative space as well. So this body is stretching out, and in between this body and this body, you can see that this negative space is creating some sort of triangle, and in between her arms, she's like the arch in her back is creating a cool triangle, and the way her arms are bent, and you can tell she's really feeling whatever song is on, because her head is back and she doesn't have a care in the world. And you can tell over here, this guy, he's boogieing down. He looks like he's having a great time. And even down to the figures in the background, you can tell that they are enjoying their time and they're dancing around. And the great thing about this artist is that in a lot of his paintings, he will depict Black people around that time. And there was a lot of tension towards African Americans and Black people. So when Black people were dealing with their daily struggles, they needed some sort of outlet in order to, relieve that tension and relieve that stress from either from tensions from their workplace, or tensions from, everyday people, tensions from their home life. What they'll do is they'll go out and they'll dance. Like, he's depicting these people dancing and like probably melting all their stress away. And it's imperative that we are recorded having a good time, because a lot of the times when artists are depicting Black people is usually about our very tense and very traumatic history. But when we are depicted in a way where we're, having a good time, and we're dancing and we're moving around, or even if we're playing or planting or doing everyday things, is very important for that type of representation. And he made sure to do that. But he didn't just depict people dancing. He also depicted people playing. He is very good at capturing movement in his work. I mentioned before that when it comes to movements, and when it comes to movement in art in particular, or maybe I didn't mention it, but I'm going to mention it now. But when it comes to physical movements in the real world and movement in art, they go hand in hand and are very important. So in this, he's depicting like physical movement, but also movement in the piece as well that he's created. When you look at this piece, your eyes wander around the piece. So you're moving, your eyes are moving, and your mind is moving around this piece. And he's actually depicting like physical movement as well, because these people are playing basketball. You can tell through this basketball is obviously a dead giveaway, but these characters right here are trying to like make a jump shot, and they're trying to block them. But the one thing in particular that I love about this piece is the elongated figures. Ernie always makes sure his figures are very elongated and expressive. This figure here, the way this negative space is, the way his legs are bent, he's creating a really unique negative space here. And even in between these two bodies, the space the space that's being created and the shapes that are being created are very special. And when his figures are really elongated, it like emphasizes the movements that these characters are making. And it's absolutely gorgeous. So what we are going to do as a warm-up is we are going to do some gesture drawings. So what a gesture drawing is a very quick drawing of either a still life or a model or a car. It can be anything of the sorts. But what a gesture drawing allows us to do is it allows us to record a lot of information very, very quickly, as opposed to taking your time and drawing each individual detail. Like a lot of artists when they were younger, they probably started off doing that. Like when I was younger and I started working and I started drawing, I drew a lot of faces, and I still draw a lot of faces. But before, when I drew a lot of faces, I would always start with the eyes. Now, the problem with that is that when you're starting with the eyes, the other parts of the body gets lost. And I would spend so much time on this one eye that by the time it was time to move on to the next part of the body, I already spent like at least an hour and 2 hours on that one thing, and I had nothing else to show for it. So when you are doing a gesture drawing, it's allowing you to get everything down first. And then once your gesture or your drawing is down and you have your outline of your drawing, you can go back and then you can incorporate details, and you would have a finished drawing a lot quicker. So when you're drawing a gesture, you want to make sure you are paying attention to the contours of the body, or the contours of anything that you're drawing, whether it's a banana or a car or a dog or a human. But in this case, we're going to be drawing humans. We're going to be drawing the human figure. So for the human gesture, we are focusing on the pose that your model is going to be making. So I recommend when you're doing a gesture drawing, I recommend that you have someone model for you. And if you don't have anybody to model, then you can just look up a picture. I don't have a model right now, so I'm using a picture on my laptop. So I chose a dancing pose because, like I said before, when you see someone dancing, they're making very, very interesting shapes with their body, as well as, it's just an interesting pose when someone dances, as opposed to them just like standing still and stiff, because nobody wants to draw that. That's boring. And it's not really a challenge, is it? It's just not. So what we are going to do is we are going to look at our model. And what I mean look, I mean actually look. When you're drawing your gesture, you want to make sure you are paying attention to what is in front of you. You want to make sure you are looking at your subject, in this case your model. Okay, so when you're drawing, let me get a fresh piece of paper first. When you're drawing a gesture, you want to pay attention to the pose. Okay, and it's going to move very quickly. Usually when you're drawing a gesture, it's about a minute, up to a minute to 10 minutes long, but in this case I'm going to do about a minute. But when you're doing a gesture drawing, you want to make sure you are putting down as much information as possible very quickly. Okay, like you're paying attention to the relationship between the object and your paper. Okay, so what you're going to do is, I like to start with the head. So what you're going to do is we're going to move very quickly, by the way, and it's only a minute. So you start off with the head. I don't know if you guys can see me. Give me 1 second. You start with the head. And in this case, we're just going to do a body that's standing straight up, just so you can get the gist of it. So you start with the head, and then I do the torso. And mind you, I'm moving very, very, very quickly. And you want to go to the arms. Maybe the arms are like straight out like that. And then you do the pelvis, and you're moving very, very quickly. And I'm looking at my figure as well as looking at my paper at the same time to make sure that I'm getting all this information down. And then I got my thighs. Mind you, I'm not worried about individual details. I don't have any hair, any clothes, any accessories. And just like that, I have my figure down. So as you can see, it's kind of leaning to the side a little bit, but that's okay. As you can see, there are no clear details here, okay? You don't see any fingers. You don't see any toes, any toenails, no eyes, eyelashes, nothing of that sort. We just drew this figure very, very quickly, okay? I got all of my information down very quick, and if I have time, I can go back and then I can solidify some of these lines, but for now, we're not gonna worry about it. So that's one figure. That's a figure that's standing straight up. Now I'm going to do a figure that is posed, okay? So my figure, I always start with the head. So my figure, I'm looking at a ballerina right now, so the contour of this body will be tilted and a little elongated. So her arm is stretching out like so. Well, now they're holding hands, it's cute. And her other arm is up to this, it's pointing up to the sky. So I'm making sure I record that. And the thighs, the left knee is a bit bent, so I'm going to draw my thigh coming out, and then the calf coming in, and then the foot. Most of her balance is on this foot here. And then her other leg is coming out like so. Just like that, I'm done. See, I drew it very, very, very quickly. I paid attention to the contours of the body. So I have my head here, and then the legs are contouring like so. And then the arms are spread out and they're pointing up to the sky. So our body is not straight up like this. Now our body is pointed and posed, and the leg is coming down like that. And the body is kind of making this sort of S shape here. That was recorded, and I did it very, very, very quickly. I don't have, like I said, I don't have any details. You don't see any eyes, a mouth, a nose, nothing. You don't see any toes, any clothes, no accessories. Don't start drawing any earrings. Don't start drawing any buttons when you're doing a quick gesture drawing, because it's not important. You want to make sure you're recording important information, okay? And I'm going to try one more pose. I'm going to record a woman in sort of a flamingo pose. So you're going to do shoulders, and her arm is kind of crossing her body a little bit, and I'm moving very quickly. And her left arm is coming out like so, and her hand is doing this type of thing. Mind you, I don't have any fingers. It's just a very broad representation of a hand. And that's the body. And then her leg is coming up across her side very, very quickly. And then her calf. And her leg is kind of pointed up, or her knees are pointing up. And her balance is on her right leg. Most of her balance is in her right leg. And boom, done. All right. So I did this very, very quickly. I don't have any details. All right. So I would love for you to give it a try. I want you to have your, oh, that's another one. Make sure you have your model. Your model is going to pose for 1 whole minute. And then eventually you can work yourself up to maybe 2 minutes, but I would like to stick to 1 minute, because when you're drawing for 1 minute, you don't have time for much, okay? When you're drawing for 1 minute, you've got to move as quickly as possible, okay? Whenever I'm drawing for that short of time, I like to quickly move from top to bottom. So, and this dancer is kind of cool. But when you are drawing for a minute, you want to make sure you get that pose. And I always work from top to bottom. So I usually start with the head, and then I work my way down, and then the leg. Sometimes you won't get the entire body in under a minute, and that's okay. You don't have to get the whole body, just enough information for you to know what you're looking at. Okay. So usually I would start from top to bottom. There's some people who work from bottom to top. There's some people who work from the arms and out, or from side to side. It's completely up to you and your drawing preference. When you do this, did you start from the top or did you start from the bottom? And which way is more helpful for you? What I'm going to recommend you do is try to start from the top if you're doing it from the bottom, or if you're doing it from the bottom, vice versa. And just keep practicing until you get comfortable with this drawing style.